When you look back at modern German history, there are very few cases that are as tragic or as controversial as the story of Anneliese Michel. It's this really haunting story that's caught right at the intersection of medicine and faith, where science and the idea of the supernatural just collided with, well, fatal consequences.
So, let's set the scene. It's the morning of July 1st, 1976. A man named Joseph Michel walks into his 23-year-old daughter Annaliese's room, and he finds her lifeless. Just like that. Of course, the authorities were called in, and what started as a tragic family discovery quickly became an investigation that would completely grip the entire nation.
So the autopsy comes back, and on paper, the cause of death is simple but just horrifying: malnutrition and dehydration. But that simple answer just blew the doors open to a much, much bigger question. How? How does a young woman starve to death in her own home? And that question, that's what led to a massive criminal trial and kicked off a debate that honestly is still going on today.
Okay, to even begin to understand how things got to this point, we have to go back. We need to look at who Anneliese Michel was, because she was really a young woman living in two completely different worlds.
So Anneliese was born back in 1952, and she grew up in this very strict, deeply religious Catholic family in Bavaria, Germany. I mean, we're talking Mass twice a week. Even later, when she went to university, her classmates remembered her as being pretty withdrawn and just very, very religious.
Her health problems really started when she was 16. It began with this really severe convulsion. And you can see here on the timeline, doctors diagnosed her with something called temporal lobe epilepsy. Now, that's a condition that affects the part of the brain that handles emotion and memory, which is a key detail. And for years, they tried everything, different anticonvulsant drugs, even antipsychotics, but nothing worked. In fact, her condition just kept getting worse.
And this right here is the heart of the whole conflict. You had the medical world saying, look, this is temporal lobe epilepsy, it's psychosis, it's depression. But on the other side, Anneliese and her family started to believe it wasn't a medical issue at all. They became convinced it was something else entirely, something spiritual, demonic possession.
So imagine this. You've been dealing with doctors for 5 years, trying all these treatments, and nothing is working. You're desperate. And that's exactly where the family was. They got so frustrated that they made this fateful decision. They basically gave up on medicine and turned completely to their faith for an answer.
Now, what pushed them in this direction? Well, it was a series of really disturbing behaviors that to them just didn't seem medical. She couldn't stand to be near religious objects, like a crucifix. She started seeing what she called devil faces and hearing voices telling her she was damned. And then there were these extreme physical acts, like performing hundreds and hundreds of deep knee bends, genuflections, every single day, to the point where she was literally destroying her knee ligaments. For her family, this was way beyond epilepsy.
And in her own words, you can just feel the agony she was in. She wrote this to a priest, Father Ernst Alt, and said, "I want to suffer for other people, but this is so cruel." It's like she believed her pain had some higher purpose, but at the same time, it was just unbearable.
Getting the church to perform an exorcism, though, that wasn't easy. It's not something they just do. At first, every priest they asked said no and told them to keep seeking medical help. But then, that same priest she wrote the letter to, Father Ernst Alt, he met with her, and he became convinced this wasn't epilepsy. He really pushed for it, appealing all the way up to the Bishop of Würzburg, Joseph Stangl. And finally, in September 1975, the bishop gave his permission, but on one condition. It had to be done in total secrecy.
So, with that secret approval from the bishop, a 10-month ordeal began. From that point on, from September 1975 all the way to June of 1976, Annaliese's life was completely taken over by the rite of exorcism.
Just think about this number for a second. 67. That's how many exorcisms they performed on her over those 10 months. They were holding 1 or 2 sessions every single week, and some of them would go on for 4 hours. It was just this grueling, relentless schedule.
And during this period, a really critical decision was made. All medical treatment stopped, completely. Apparently, it was at Annaliese's own request. The family stopped consulting doctors and put all of their hope into the rites. And that decision, well, it would prove to be a fatal one.
What's really wild is that the priests recorded a lot of this. We're talking over 40 hours of audio tapes. And on those tapes, you can hear voices, supposedly coming from Anneliese, claiming to be different demons: Lucifer, Cain, Judas, even Hitler. These recordings would become a central piece of evidence for the defense in the trial that was to come.
So while all these spiritual rites were happening, her physical body was just wasting away. She started refusing food and water. She got pneumonia. Her knees were literally broken from all the genuflections. At the time she died, she weighed only 30 kilograms, which is just 66 pounds. She was basically a skeleton.
This whole 10-month ordeal of intense rituals, it all led to a horrifying end. And this is where the conflict jumps from the spiritual realm straight into a German courtroom. Yeah, her death wasn't the end of the story at all. In fact, it was just the beginning of a legal battle that was about to shock the entire country.
When it came to the medical evidence, it was pretty clear-cut. Undeniable, really. The official autopsy said she died from malnutrition and dehydration. The state prosecutor looked at this and said her death was preventable, that it was a direct result of starvation. And because of that, criminal charges were filed, not just against the two priests, but against her parents as well.
So, in 1978, the trial began. You have her parents, Joseph and Anna, and the two priests, Father Alt and Father Renz, all on trial for negligent homicide. And the verdict? They were all found guilty. The priests got suspended sentences and probation. And the parents? Well, they were found guilty too, but the court decided not to punish them, saying they had already suffered enough. It was a really controversial decision.
The trial itself became this public stage for the two warring ideas at the heart of the case. On one side, the prosecution brought in doctors who testified that all her symptoms could be explained by her epilepsy and the psychological effects of her incredibly strict religious upbringing. They said it was a clear case of medical neglect. But the defense? They argued this was about religious freedom, which is protected by the German Constitution. They even played those audio tapes in court, trying to prove that this was a genuine case of demonic possession. So here we are, decades later, and the story of Anneliese Michel is just as polarizing as it ever was. People still fiercely debate what really happened to her. Was it illness? Was it something else? And who was ultimately responsible for her death?
If you look at the case for it being a medical issue, the evidence is pretty concrete. You have the official diagnosis of temporal lobe epilepsy. We know that can cause hallucinations and major personality changes. She had years of psychiatric treatment for depression and psychosis. And most importantly, the direct physical cause of death was starvation. It all points to a powerful, science-based explanation for what happened. But then you look at the other side. Those who believe it was a genuine possession point to all the things they say medicine can't explain. Things like her violent aversion to religious objects, which is a classic sign in exorcism lore. The claims that she spoke in languages she'd never learned, and those different voices on the tapes. And the big one for them, the fact that 5 years of modern medicine did absolutely nothing to help her.
Now, if we look at this case through a modern lens, things are a little different. Today, it's pretty likely that psychiatrists would see this not as possession, but as a really complex mix of recognized mental illnesses. Her symptoms really line up with things like severe psychosis, maybe even dissociative identity disorder. And you have to imagine all of that was just tragically amplified by her epilepsy and the intense psychological pressure of her environment.
And that leaves us with one last, really sobering question to think about. If a case like Annaliese's happened today, with all of our advances in medicine, our laws, the 24/7 media, would the outcome actually be any different? Or are those deep cracks between science and faith, between medicine and belief, still just as present as they were back then?